I've got one of these which I forgot that I had, and I can use this to do different maths things. So, for instance, I can do a number, and I can make a number 2. I can make a number 3. I can make a number 4. And that reminds me of a story of 4 young men that had perfectly good legs, and a young man whose didn't work at all. He couldn't sort of walk and run and jump and climb things and kick balls like we do. Do you think he was going to have a brilliant life? No, in lots of ways I don't think he was. All he could do was to lie on his bed. Yeah. But the really good thing is for him, he did have friends with really good. Well, one day, the friends with really good heard that there was somebody coming, it's just a stage is going through, that there was somebody coming to town, somebody who was really famous, whose name began with a letter. Anybody guess who it was? Yeah. Not Jack. Not James. Somebody very famous lived a long time ago. Jesus, yeah. Well, they got really excited that Jesus was coming to town because they'd heard all about Jesus, how he did amazing things. They'd heard stories about how he'd made somebody that was blind that could see again, somebody who had a horrible skin condition called leprosy that he'd healed that, even somebody who died, Jesus had brought back to life. So they thought, wow, this is great. We're going to take our friend around on his to see if he can heal his. And so the friends of the really good went round to the house where their friend was. They knocked on the door and they waited for him to come and answer it. Oh no, sorry, they didn't do that, did they? He couldn't answer the door because he couldn't walk. All he could do was to lie on his. So they went into where he was and they said, hey, guess what? Guess who's coming to town today? It's Jesus. So we're going to take you to see him, to see if he can do something about your legs. So the friend who was really good picked up their friend on his legs, which kind of wasn't really a bed like we sleep in. It's more like one of those camping beds that you can roll up. They picked him up, one on each corner, and they went to the house where was, but when they got there, they couldn't get anywhere near the front door because there were so many people who crowded around wanting to see Jesus. They thought, what else we do? We'll just go around the side and we'll see if we can get in through the. Well, they couldn't get anywhere near the window either, so they had a little bit of a scratch of their heads, and they thought, I know what we'll do. We'll see if we can get up onto the roof of the house. Because you see, in those days, in that part of the world, still today actually, when they built a house, they didn't build it with the on the inside of the house. They built it with stairs on the outside of the house. In fact, they didn't build houses with pointy roofs like that. They built them with flat roofs like that because it's a very hot country. The only reason that we build houses with pointy roofs is so the rain runs off them. If we lived somewhere where it was lots and lots of snow, we'd build them with really pointy roofs so the snow would fall off. But the reason they built them, as I say, with a flat roof like that was because in the summer when it was really hot, they could treat the roof as a kind of extra room. And so what they would do, in the summer they would go up to the roof of the house. And they could sit under yeah, well done. And they could sit there in the shade, you see, with a nice cool breeze because they were up high. So our friend with the really good picked up their friend on his climbed up went to the roof of the house, and then they took out their penknives because they were allowed to carry them in those days. Excuse me. And they began to dig into the roof of the house because the roofs were made of kind of like straw and mud and branches and stuff. And they began to dig into it until eventually they got a. Well, I'm going to pause my story there because I was just thinking about wondering and imagining what it would be like in the room there. There was Jesus and everybody's crowded around, standing or sitting, a bit like we are here. And suddenly, as a hole began to appear in the roof, there must have been little bits and pieces fall down. And I imagine that it went like this, that people were going, yeah, well, What's going on? Hey, stop that. You're ruining my hairstyle. As I say, I don't know that is what happened, but I reckon it probably was. But do you think they were going to stop digging a hole in the roof? No. They made that hole bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until it was so big they could all get their heads through and to look around. And then they took out a rope, tied it to the four corners of the, lowered it through the, until it came in to rest in front of Jesus. And Jesus looked down and said, And he could see that his legs didn't work. But he could also see that even though his legs didn't work, so he'd not been able to run around and get into all sorts of trouble and mischief like maybe, I guess, we have, that he'd still done things that he needed to be forgiven for. So Jesus looked down at him and he said, your sins, that's just an old-fashioned word that means, the wrong things that we do, say and think. He said, your sins are forgiven you. All around the room was a sharp intake of breath. Well, it was a bit bigger than that. Let's try that one again, shall we? All around the room there was a sharp intake of breath. And the people began to say, did you hear that? Did you hear what he said? He said, your sins are forgiven. Well, who does he think he is? Doesn't he know that only God can forgive people's sins? Oh my goodness, I don't. And of course they were right. Only God can forgive people their sins. But of course, we know now today what they didn't know back then was that Jesus is the Son of God. And so he does have the power and the authority to forgive people their sins. Well, Jesus looked around the room and he said, well, tell me, what's easier for me to say? Your sins are forgiven? Or, young man, stand up, roll up your bed, your sleeping mat thing, stick it under your arm and go home? Nobody said a word. So Jesus looked down and he said, young man, in order that everybody will know that I do have the power and authority to forgive people their sins, young man, stand up, roll up your bed, sleeping mat thingy, stick it under your arm and go home. He felt a tingling in his toes. He'd never felt anything in his toes ever before. The tingling began to spread up his legs. Suddenly, he jumped up, did a little dance, and he bent down, rolled out the sleeping mat, put it under his arm, and he went flying outside to join his friends with really good. But now there were 5 friends with. But I can't make a 5 with this. Well, I can if I go for Roman numerals. I can do it like that. But that kind of brings us to the end of the story, so I'll finish my story there.